Hey, gun people, I want to put in a start to this on what kind of prompted this. I've always heard that, they've got all different. If you Google exploding bullets, you'll get all these images of different things to where they're claiming greater expansion, etc. So, and, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you've got a small gun, if you put a primer in there, could you possibly have a better defensive round against like a bear or something of that nature? You may. I mean, again, there's all kind of different what they call exploding bullet, expanding bullets, reactive bullets, etc. There was one video. Where was that? This video right here I just posted on. It's on YouTube, and he puts potassium and sodium in a bullet, and man, there was some pretty impressive effects. I put it on Think Like a Cop Facebook page. I'll try to remember to put a link in the description of this video. But look, if you've only got a couple rounds and you got to take down a bear or something, would this work by putting a primer? I don't know if it's going to give you that much, so we decided to test it. So here's a video. Hey, gun people. So I was hanging out with Buck this morning. Sorry, I had to take a sip of iced tea. I know that upset. Hang on, let me get my... So, this is a Glock 21, I think Gen 4, not sure. It's the gun I keep in my car, so whatever one it is. Anyway, so me and Buck had talked before about people putting primers in bullet holes or in the in the bullet hollow point and shoving a primer in there, and would it work and what would it do? And so we tried it, and you can see part of the primer here. And let's take a look at another picture here. So here's the two rounds. Maybe I can zoom in on this just a little bit. Get this a little bit more in the center here. Oh no, I'll have to move this one. All right. So if you look at these two pictures, this is the one that had the primer, and this is the one that did not have the primer. So if you notice, there's 3 empty casings and there's only 2 bullets. Well, this is the one that we shot into a piece of metal, AR-500. So we could only find little bitty pieces. So we were like, well, that's not no good. Oh, I'm sorry, the ammo. This is Winchester, 230 grain, SXT. Same exact thing as Black Talon. They just call it the XST Ranger. It says usually law enforcement only on the box, but you can still buy them. That's what I carried. That's what I had the guys carry. That's what I ordered when I was a range guy. I think it's a great round. But anyway, I'm not trying to promote the round. I'm trying to look at the round performance here. So what we did is we shot one round into a solid metal piece with a primer, and the primer we used was a small pistol primer. And he measured it on his little scale, and it was .174 or 175. And this hole was a little small. So he got a number, I think 16 drill bit, which was 177, and just didn't even barely go all the way in, just enough to round this out because it wasn't perfectly round, and then we were able to put a small primer in there. So, and you always hear the stories about it'll make the bullet, it's an explosive. I didn't see that in this test. This test was done under supervised supervision. And don't try this at home, and let me put all the little idiot warnings out here. Don't be a fool and shoot stuff. Anyway, so this one had the primer in it, and this one did not. Both these 2 rounds, because we were able to dig them out, were shot into paper. And when I say paper, it was like 4 inches deep, like 2 phone books put together. It was pretty deep. And so let me go to the next round, the next picture here. So if you notice the picture with the primer, and we still could not figure out whether the primer exploded or not. We think it did on a solid one. Buck thinks it did on this one. And the reason why is because if you look at the bullets, And I'll try to slide in a little video clip where I actually show the video of the bullets by hand. I just took pictures because I was able to zoom in and kind of look at it. So if you notice on the one without the primer, it got a couple little things in the paper and it spread out. This one got a lot more destruction. So that's why Buck thinks the primer went off in this one. No primer, primer. Here's a little bit more of a close-up and a long-wise. Another thing I notice is the one without the primer, it maintained its shape long-wise. So it almost looks still like a bullet, whereas this one mushroomed out a little bit more. Buck thinks what happened is the primer went off and made the metal, created a hole for the metal to spread out more. He's not sure the primer actually did all this. But it's hard to say. I mean, we shot it in paper and then we had to dig it out. The primer, this one, got much less penetration, probably an inch less penetration than the one without the primer. So does that mean the primer went off or it didn't go off? Buck was talking about looking for something like the cone or the triangle or something, and he said he couldn't find it, which he thinks it went off. Small pistol primer. Buck thinks, and I kind of think also, that it probably did go off because the expansion on this is much better than the expansion on this one. They were shot both at the same distance, same paper, same gun. Let's see, I got another picture. This one shows a more downward view. Notice how this one kind of looks like it got fatter and stopped quicker, and this one got more penetration. It did get more penetration. This one went in straighter and this one didn't. But if you look at the back of the rounds, and I don't know if I got a picture of that or not. Yeah, I don't think I did. I will show in a video that I'll add in at the back here of the rounds on the difference on the back of these rounds. This one went a little oblong, which I think it tumbled. And that's what caused it to bend. This one didn't. It stayed almost completely round in the back because I think it got more spreading. Now again, this isn't scientific. I'm not shooting gel, and is paper harder than a person? I mean, paper's pretty freaking hard. You try to stab a stack of paper with a knife, you're not getting a lot of penetration. Again, the metal target we shot, the bullet disintegrated. So, and it probably would have disintegrated without the primer. Because the bullet, we were inside the store shooting, we couldn't hear whether there was two reports, whether the primer made a bang, whether the gun made a bang, or whether the bang was coming from where it hit the steel metal plate. So it was hard to tell. We don't have 3D speed cameras and all that slow motion crap. But anyway, I did get, I think, one more picture. This shows the top part. Again, this one had the primer in it. This one did not. Both shot in the same paper. Did the primer go off? I don't know. Again, small pistol primer, and he still had to use a 177 drill bit. And I mean, he didn't really take off hardly anything. If I go back to the round, he just barely took off around this edge here, so the primer would fit in, and then we put it in a vise and mashed the primer down. But the primer was still about, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch above this. So the primer was going to hit first. Would it go off if it hit a person? I don't know. Would it be more effective? Would it make a hollow point basically a ball ammo? I don't know. It didn't in the paper because this was closed up, and we still got more expansion than we did in the one without the primer. So you can take it for what it's worth. I'm going to try and set up my camera and videotape a little bit of the pieces and zoom in, and maybe you'll get a better view. Okay, so here is, I'm going to try to get close-ups of the bullet. See if this thing will stay focused or not. Doesn't look like I'm going to be able to get much closer than that. Doesn't want to focus in. So, left is primer, right is not primer. The things that I wanted to explain on the back side was, you notice the one with the primer is almost perfectly round, and the one on the right looks like it spun, which caused that torquing, tumbling, yawning, whatever you want to call the term. Basically, it was a tumble, and it kind of deformed the back of the bullet a little bit, which kind of surprised me. And again, that's what it looked like before. Nope, dropped around on the ground. Bang! I know somebody. Oh my God! He dropped around. It's be quiet, you big crybabies. All right, so and that's kind of what they look like right there. So again, on the I don't know if this is going to come in. I'm too far in. The small pistol primer was about 174 or 175, and he used a 177 drill number 16 drill bit just to drill out a little bit of this. Very small amount, I mean hardly anything. Basically just round it so the primer would fit in there. Then we put it in a vise like this with the primer in there, and we close the vise until we got the primer set in there. And again, shot a metal plate, couldn't find anything, couldn't tell if it went off, couldn't hear. This is all into paper, and hopefully you know, you can take from it what you want. I'm not saying good, bad, or indifferent, but the primer, the one with the primer, definitely had a different response to the paper. And I just thought it was interesting because I'd always heard about it and heard that you could do it and this and that. So me and Buck were sitting around drinking coffee and nobody was coming in the shop, so we said, all right, let's do it. And I was going to film it, but it wasn't, I mean, all it is a bang in the shop and you can't really see anything. You see a hole in the paper and then we have to dig it out and find it. So really useless to show you dig it out. I figured I'd share the results. All right, we'll end that there.